Hi, I'm Shep Hyken, and here's what's coming up on this edition of Be Amazing or Go Home. Enhancing the customer experience. Practice makes perfect, and we have 5 basic tips to help you create an amazing experience for your customers. Everybody matters. Bob Chapman stops by to talk about his mission to change the way business treats their employees. And it's the bedrock of his company's billion-dollar success story. Life happens, and it can be overwhelming, but Matt Granados has the tools to create the life that you want, both personally and professionally. He'll join us in studio with the answers. And yes is the answer. An amazing quote shows that just one word can build a philosophy and attitude behind a company's culture. So, are you ready to be amazing? Well, stay tuned for all of this and much more coming up next on Be Amazing or Go Home. Hello, I'm Shep Hyken, and this is Be Amazing or Go Home, the show that's dedicated to take you from average to amazing. Well, in customer service, there are so many ways to do things right. In my speeches, I talk about the right way to manage first impressions, demonstrate knowledge, build rapport, ask the right questions, and much, much more. These are some of the basics. They should be common sense. And here's a list of 5 simple ways to create a better experience for your customers and your colleagues at work. Number 1, the greeting. In person, look someone in the eye, shake their hand firmly and with confidence. Dress for success, which means dressing appropriately. When answering the phone, don't be gruff or short with your greeting. Warmly welcome the customer or your colleague into the conversation. Number 2, leaving a voicemail. If you call someone and get their voicemail, you might as well leave a message. Thanks to caller ID, most of the time they're going to know who called. So take advantage and leave a good message. Start with your name, then immediately state your phone number. That's the important part, giving the customer your contact info at the beginning of the message. Then leave the message and end by repeating your phone number and email if appropriate. Here's number 3. Responding to messages. Now, this includes phone, email, social media, and any other messaging app. It's simple. Do it fast. There are different expectations for different platforms, but if you really want to be impressive, respond to your customers, especially their phone messages and emails, freaky fast. Number 4, an apology. When a customer has a complaint, the first thing you want to do is apologize and do it in the right way. It should be sincere, but beyond that, there must be some kind of acknowledgement of the problem. An empathy statement like, "I'm so sorry, I can understand why you're upset. I'd be upset if that happened to me too." Well, that's a good way to apologize and acknowledge the customer's problem quickly. In short, a perfect start to resolving the issue. And number 5, building rapport. What do customers like to talk about more than anything? Themselves. So take a moment to talk about them and their lives, not just business. It could be a 5 or 10-second interaction, but it helps break the ice. If you're talking to a colleague at work, ask about their weekend or their kids. You get the idea. There are many ways to add a little personalization to a conversation. Now, here's an idea to make these ideas come to life. Every day throughout the week, focus on just one of these tactics. Have each employee write down one example that describes how they use this common sense customer service tactic with either an outside customer or one of their team members. Then share the examples with the team. Practice these tactics and everything else customer focused, and you'll be fully prepared to create an amazing customer experience. What's truly human leadership? Well, Bob Chapman implements this people-centric approach in his multi-billion-dollar business where his employees feel valued, cared for, like family, and play an integral part of the company's purpose. And everybody matters. So, how do you care for your employees the way you would care for your family? Well, Bob Chapman, the CEO of Barry-Wehmiller, is here to tell us in the studio How to Make It Happen. Welcome to the show.
Good to be here.
All right. I've read the book. I've watched videos. I've seen videos of you speaking. I'd love to see you in person, but we're right here. Give us a little background on yourself. There's a great story about how you went from a typical management philosophy to a very people-centered philosophy, really what you call going from management to leadership.
Well, I really began with a very traditional education, accounting, MBA, Price Waterhouse. And so all the fundamentals, and I thought it was all about creating shareholder value. You remember, I took management classes, got a management degree, got a job in management. So I thought we were supposed to manage people. So I really spent the first half of my career using the skills I was taught in business school to create shareholder value. But in reflection, I was never taught to care about the people that I would impact in my journey through life to create this business. It was always about the product, okay, and the profits.
So when did you figure out time to make the change?
I had a series of revelations about 14 years ago, started in 1997, that I just call them revelations because they're thoughts that came, I don't know where they came from. They weren't stimulated by a book or consultant, which transformed me into what I call a truly human leader, and I'll give you an example. I was interviewed by some organizational development professors for a couple of hours a few years ago. At the end of the interview, they said, "Mr. Chapman, you're the first CEO I've ever talked to that didn't talk about their product." And I said, "We've been talking about our product for the last 2 hours. It's our people." Yeah. I won't go to my grave proud of the machines we built. I'll go to my grave proud of the people who built the machines that we built. So those series of transformations that are in my book allowed me to see the world dramatically differently than I was taught and that I experienced. And then people started hearing about it, coming in, and the book was written because people said, "I've never seen anything like this." So it's been a transformation for me. And my point is, you can create economic value, which we think is the primary purpose of business, but you can create human value in harmony with economic value so that people return home each night knowing that who they are and what they do matters. Because I was never taught is that the way we run our businesses impacts the health. Remember, the person you report to at work is more important to your health than your family doctor. And number two, the way we treat people at work affects the way they go home and treat their spouse and their kids and behave in our society. So I realized that business could be the #1 source for good in the world if we learn to care for the people we had the privilege of leading.
So that's amazing. And that may be one of the reasons that Inc. magazine ranked you the #3 in the world of CEOs. And it's quite an honor. You've got a best-selling book, the Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Everybody Matters. And this is your secret sauce right here. This is philosophy here. The subtitle is The Extraordinary Power of Caring for Your People Like Family. And I do believe that the caring and the feeling, other CEOs who've been successful. Look at Herb Kelleher, how he focused so much on the family, and you're in the manufacturing business. You're making machines. And for people to come to work and love being at a place that makes machines, that's because you fulfill their dreams.
I'll give you an interesting perspective. We live in a society where we have TGIF. Thank God it's Friday.
Yeah, can't wait to get out of here.
I dream of a world, I imagine a world where we have TGIM. Thank goodness it's Monday. Get away from the kids, the spouse, the chores, and get to a place where I feel valued and I get a chance to share my gifts and return home. So I know for a fact that business could be a powerful force for good in the world if we simply learn to care about the people we had the privilege of leading.
So give me an example or two of how what it looks like.
Well, it began through these revelations I had, and I said to myself, how we can convert our managers into leaders. Remember, I have come to the conclusion that the word management means, the way it is used in our country, the manipulation of others for your success. Leadership is the stewardship of the lives entrusted to you. What I would say to you is that what we've learned here is that business could be a powerful force for good in the world if we simply saw those people in our care as somebody's child who's been put in our care, and that we need to allow them to develop their gifts, share their gifts, be appreciated for their gifts, and go home each night. So these revelations, and so what happens is, and the reason for the book, the TED Talk, and all these lectures I give now, is that people started coming into our company and saying, I've never seen anything like this. And McKinsey partners, Harvard professors, Stanford. And so we realized we'd been given a gift that could profoundly change the world if we could just go from managing people to inspiring people and sending them home each night knowing that who they are and what they do matters. So it was a real transformation for me, but it's when I took what I learned about parenting and applied it, which means caring. We want our kids to be who they're intended to be. Why don't I want your kids on everybody else's kids? So it was a real experience for us.
So what's the retention of your employees?
Well, we don't even think about it because
I imagine they want to stay. They never want to leave.
What we have is when we go out to recruit, we get amazing interest in our culture from people. People they say, if what I read on your website is true, that's the place I want to work. And we have young people say, my parents tell me if I ever quit this job, they're going to disown me because this is where they want. The greatest compliment somebody can give you is, can I give you my daughter's resume? I'd love for her to work for you. That is the greatest compliment because we want our kids to be cared for, right?
Yeah.
And so business could be a source for good in the world instead of a source of using human people, because we're taught to use people for our success, not care for people for their success.
Yeah. So speaking of daughters and resumes, but you have a great story about a friend of yours walking his daughter down the aisle on the day of her wedding and sharing what he didn't say what he wanted to say. You've got to tell the story. I know we don't have a lot of time, but
real briefly, that is the story everybody. When I tell this in every speech I give around the world, and it's the one that resonates with people, because when you're sitting in a wedding, you see this precious young lady walk by her father down the aisle, and everybody oohs and ahs how precious she looks, how proud he is, and he gives his daughter's hand to be wed to this young man. When I was sitting there, I said, having walked my two precious daughters down the aisle, I said, that's not what that father wanted to say. That's what he was told to say at the rehearsal. What he wanted to say is, look at young man, her mother and I brought this precious young lady in this world. We've given her all the gifts we could give her so she could be who she's intended to be. And we expect you, young man, through this marriage, for you to continue to allow her she's intended to be as she will with you. Do you understand that, young man? And then all of a sudden I went to the next thought. I said, oh my gosh, all 12,000 people that work for us around the world are somebody's precious child, just like that young lady and young man getting married, who are in our care. And it created a profound sense of responsibility. So I no longer looked at people, that's an engineer, that's an accountant, that's a receptionist. That's somebody's precious child who I will have a profound impact on their life. So I would say to you, that is you can boil down truly human leadership in seeing the people you have the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child.
Yeah, I love that. And you also believe in putting a little fun into your business. There's a quote that you said, business should be fun. And when you decided to make that happen, revenue went up by 20%, and the joy factor in the company went up by 1,000%.
Yeah, I bought a company in South Carolina. I walked in the first day I was going to be there. I was having a cup of coffee in the lunchroom. And so nobody knew me, I didn't know them. And it was March, and everybody's talking about March Madness. And people were having fun talking about which team won, et cetera. And the closer it got to 8 o'clock, you could just see the fun go out of their body. I always say you can't even say the word job with a smile. And I said to myself, why can't business be fun? When do people express their gifts most fully? When they're having fun. And so I began creating some, I'll call them games, motivation programs that would allow people to have fun. I had no idea it would affect performance or joy. I wanted them to have fun.
But it worked.
It was profound. What I heard astounded me. And I saw people talking to their families, looking forward, and the culture improved dramatically. They started having fun. And the benefit was our customers got better service, and our team members enjoyed doing it. So it was that was the first revelation I had.
Wow, and then along came TGIM.
Yeah.
Thank goodness it's Monday. All right, we're just about out of time. Any last parting words you'd like to share with us?
I think what I'd like everybody to think about is when you look at the fact that we have record unemployment in this country and we're at peace in the world, yet we have some of the highest anxiety we've ever had in our country, and our children going to college, in the military. So And you say, why? Is it social media? My view is that money doesn't create happiness, okay? Money creates substance, but it doesn't create happiness. And what we have never learned is to care for the people we have the privilege of leading, whether you're in a nonprofit, you're in a business, or you're in education. And I speak in all facets of our society. And I believe we don't need the government to do anything. People tell me all the time, you should run for president. And I say, why would I want to do that? I can change the world more through business tomorrow. If your listeners simply look at the people they have the privilege of leading as somebody's precious child that's put in their care, and give them, the people that put their faith in you, a grounded sense of hope for a better future, we could profoundly change the world tomorrow.
Yes, we can. And that's why we call this show Be Amazing or Go Home. And this is an amazing interview. The book is titled Everybody Matters by Bob Chapman and Raj Sisodia, who's written a number of other books. Great book about leadership. This is what it's all about. You're amazing. We love having you on your show. Thanks so much, man.
I would tell you that Raj Sisodia just wrote his next book called The Healing Organization, which follows, because he realized when he did our book that organizations can be a source of healing.
Yeah, definitely. It's so much a part of our life. It should be.
Right.
All right. Thanks again for being on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Time now for the amazing app brought to you by First Rule. And this technology is simplifying big city and urban transportation. City Mapper is a public transit mapping service app that integrates data for all urban modes of transportation to compare all of your transit options in real time. Cities can be complicated, whether you live in that city or you're visiting another city for leisure or business. So the company's mission has been to simplify these cities. City Mapper uses the power of open data and mobile and payment technology to make transport sustainable and hassle-free. Whether you're walking, riding, or driving, City Mapper will get you where you need to go in the most convenient way possible. City Mapper even offers a pass or a subscription to give you access to all mobility with a smart travel card that's integrated within the app. Everything is rolled into one on this City Mapper Pass. No anxiety or stress of having to worry about how different cities use different schemes or options for their modes of transportation. The ultimate transit technology that eliminates friction and creates convenience. It's City Mapper, and it's truly an amazing app. Every business is made up of human beings who have their own personal purpose, but much of the workplace training that individuals receive doesn't fully address personal growth. So, people can burn out or become unproductive at work due to the lack of personal connection to what they do professionally. Well, Matt Granados of Life Pulse has the solution to that problem and joins us now in the studio to talk about it. Welcome to the show.
Very nice to be here. Appreciate you.
All right, so I love the idea of what you're doing. I've gotten to know a little bit about it. Tell us your story, where you came from. Who is Matt?
Yeah, so started off as kind of a young, not necessarily the most bright student in the classroom. Worked my way through.
You were in the half that made the top half possible.
They're welcome.
Yeah.
Right. And what we ended up doing was there's a couple pivotal moments I remember in my life. The first was probably at 15. I went to this leadership program called Eagle University, and it just completely changed the way I thought. And then that led to starting my first business.
So at age 15, you go to a leadership program.
Yeah.
How many people do that?
Well, my parents were like, go somewhere, right? Get them out of here. So we went. It was an amazing experience. And still, I actually volunteer every single year since then. I haven't missed a year yet. Mm-hmm. And what ended up happening was that opened my eyes to what's possible, which then led to starting our first business and that moment of making my first check, right? Seeing what it's like to actually make money as an entrepreneur. The next pivotal moment I always tell people is when I met my wife, Maria. And the interesting part about when I met my wife, Maria, everyone says, you mean when you married her? And I said, no, when I met her, was seeing that there's other people out there as crazy as me, meaning wanting the most out of life, willing to do whatever it takes to grow through things. And that was an amazing experience, which led us to building this consulting company called Life Pulse, which is based off of working with individuals to find that root problem, which is usually somewhere internally in the person.
Right. Now, I want to go back to your wife for just a moment, because I noticed that you're the president.
Okay.
She's the CEO.
She is the brains behind the operation. I'm the puppet that comes on stage and dances, but she's the one with all the brains. She's the one that makes it look nice. The whole way this story kind of came to was she came up to me and said, you know, Matt, I knew marrying you was going to be hard, but I didn't realize it was going to be this hard. I mean, You're
Really?
crazy. And I said, well, you knew that going into it, so what do we do? And she said, how do you manage all this? So I showed her these 9 questions that I go through every single week to prep myself, and that's where the LP came from, which then built into Life Pulse. So LP was basically a planning system that I wanted to use with my wife.
LP stands for Life Pulse, right?
Yep.
And so these 9 questions, I want to get to this because we're all about giving actionable takeaways.
Awesome.
I think this is a great concept because we were talking about this briefly earlier. These 9 questions help set up your week.
Yeah.
You know, get you prepped.
Exactly.
Focused. Can you share with us some of those questions?
Yeah, so the first 3 are probably ones that are kind of the most impactful. So it's what's your one-word focus? So
Give me an example of a one-word focus.
intentional.
Intentional.
Focus.
And you change it week to
Power.
week to week.
Yep.
Yeah, based on your mood.
When I was getting married, it was marriage, right? It's just what's the one thing I need to focus on this week to achieve whatever it is I want this week.
Okay.
You can't multitask. It's impossible. Studies have shown countless times it's not possible to do. Yet
You can try and change real fast,
Yeah,
but you can't do it at the same
we
time.
call it partial tasking. That's what you can do at best, but you can't multitask. So one-word focus, what are you focused on? And then we have people find a quote that brings that word to life. I'm a big believer that quotes from other people will bring more value than sometimes what you think in your own head. After that, we jump into what's called our weekly gratitude. So what's the one thing this week that you're grateful for?
What you're coming up or what you just did?
Either one, either currently in your life or something that actually happened this week. Then we do what we call our pulse check, and that's basically I call it an inventory check of how you've done in all the 4 vital signs of your life, which is internal, physical, relational, and professional. Once that happens, you can set your goals. So that's the first chunk of it. And the system behind it is what I call reverse planning. And it's the biggest mistake I think people make when they plan out their week is the way the traditional model is you list all the things you got to do, and then you just do what you think you could do, cross off the list, and what the average person does is cherry picks the easy ones and leaves the hard ones. What we suggest to do is what's reverse planning, which is list all the things you want to do, then list what you need to do, but the key is to only do what is important. And what is important is what tasks are related to your goals.
Okay, got it. There's I see a matrix here. I see, important, not urgent.
Exactly.
Those kinds of things.
So this project and this program that we teach is a hodgepodge of things we've created ourselves, but also things that we've found that works. We're big believers in no reason to reinvent the wheel.
If it's a good wheel,
if it
go
works,
with it.
use it. You know, we give all the credit that's due to whoever it is that created it, and Eisenhower was the one who first started using that.
Really?
Yeah.
President
Cubby.
Eisenhower.
Yeah, he's known as one of the best delegating presidents of all times.
Yep.
I didn't know many people know that.
Just wrote an article about how he loves to give people, gratitude and respect for the work they did, but he also accepts all the blame. He says, respect and recognition go down and blame goes right up to me.
100%.
Yep.
Even cooler is if you look up the letter. He wrote 2 letters after D-Day.
Failure letter.
Yeah.
Yes.
If you read that failure letter, you'll get chills to see what a true leader is.
Because he was ready to use that as a speech. Had Normandy failed.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I tell
We're
everybody.
getting a history lesson
There we
here.
go. I tell everyone. I say read that letter because you will be amazed. You'll know what a true leader is, and I don't know when the last time we've seen one that selfless to be willing to do that.
Wow. All right. So if we wanted to learn more about Life Pulse, and a website would be like
LifePulseInc.com.
LifePulseInc.com.
Pretty simple.
Yep.
What we do is come in and we increase the bandwidth of individuals while minimizing stress using the current assets that the company or the individual already has.
And you have a heck of a client list. I think Google and Twitter
so we've worked at Google headquarters. We've worked with Twitter. We've worked with. We're actually going up to Twitter next week. The United States Air Force, all the way down to small startups.
Yep.
We break our program down where we work with groups of 20 at a time. Actually, as small as groups of 10. So it doesn't matter how big or small a business is, whether it's individuals or not. We coach every single person personally, one-on-one, through the entire program.
Wow, amazing. All right, we're wrapping up. Share with us one last insight.
The biggest insight I would say is recognizing the fact that when it comes to the way most people work their professional life, they tend to focus a lot of time, effort, energy on it. And I always tell people is if you focus on your professional life the way you focused on your life, your personal life, you'd be fired. So you have to be cautious. Well, instead I want you to do is I want you to focus on your personal life the way you focus on your professional life. And here's the reason why, is if you took a little bit of the attention we put towards work and just put it towards your personal life.
Setting the goals, doing the plan, hitting the deadline, returning calls promptly.
Exactly. Yeah. Everything you do to keep your job would help you keep yourself in physical fitness, will help keep your marriage, will help keep yourself internally focused. If you were to set just some small goals in those other 3 vital signs outside of your professional life, your life would be a lot easier.
Love it. Life Pulse. Matt, thanks for being on the show.
Appreciate it, Shep. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Well, it's time to hear from you and time to ask Shep. You can find me anywhere on the web, including these social channels. So use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions or share your amazing story. So let's begin. Lisa Taylor manages a chain of department stores, and here's her message. I read a study that said customer loyalty and retention are in decline. Why is that, and how can I avoid that decline in my business? It's interesting that while most companies and brands are focused on delivering a better service experience, and they really are, loyalty is on the decline. And the reason is that while the customer service is getting better, it may not be keeping up with the customer's expectations, which are no longer based on direct competition, but the best service the customers received from any company in any industry. And the stakes are higher. So the short answer is to deliver a great experience and try to connect personally and even emotionally with the customer. Now, let's hear from Christopher Schmidt, who's starting up his own company after working in the corporate world, and for many years he's been there, and now he asked, what should be my number one priority starting a new business? Customer service or company culture? Well, I love this question. So let's start with the end in mind. Define what you want your customer service to be. It's your service vision. Then move internally and bake it into your culture. Hire the right people and train people again and again to that vision. You can't have consistently great service without a customer-focused culture. Finally, we have Kelly Riley, a marketing director for a theme park, and she says, business is good, but we're looking to stay one step ahead of the competition. How can we predict what our customers want or need from us in the future? That's an interesting question. First, find out what the rockstar brands are doing to win and keep their customers. Think about it. What are they doing that you're not doing? And whatever they are doing is potentially going to become your customer's expectation of your business, even if you're in a completely different industry. Also, listen to what your customers are saying. Ask them, what's the one thing that you can think of that would make the experience with us better? The answer to those questions, and that question specifically, will help you learn what your customers want. So, are you ready to be amazing? Well, remember, you can find me just about anywhere on social media. So, connect with us on our social channels, and don't forget to use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions or share your amazing story. Time now for the amazing quote brought to you by First Rule, and it comes from Cameron Mitchell, and it's also the title of one of his books. Yes is the answer. What's the question? Cameron Mitchell is the founder and CEO of Cameron Mitchell Restaurants, and his 60 restaurants are recognized for great food and amazing service across the board. Amazing companies empower their employees to find solutions or come up with yes answers for their customers. So this quote emphasizes the idea that saying yes is philosophical. Now, there are plenty of reasons you might say no to a customer, so you must train your people accordingly. Then, through training, give employees examples that show them how far they can go. That's a good way to start embracing the yes attitude. And yes really is an attitude. It must be baked into the culture of an organization. Employees must be empowered to say yes whenever possible, or to find creative solutions to make customers happy when the answer must be a no. If an employee asks permission for something they weren't sure what to do and they could say yes to, then that should be the last time the employee should ever have to ask permission for anything similar. Document those examples for others to follow. Train by citing examples of actual interactions between employees and customers. By the way, if someone crosses the line and doesn't say no when they should, well, that's a great opportunity to train them as well. Yes is more than just a simple answer to a customer's request or their needs. It's an attitude and a culture. Create an organization focused on taking care of the customer. Now, this could mean saying yes or coming up with other ways to make the customer happy. Serve your customers with the yes attitude, and they'll serve you success for your business. Well, That wraps up this edition of Be Amazing or Go Home. And remember, you can find me just about anywhere on social media, so be sure to connect with us on our social channels. And don't forget to use the hashtag AskShep to ask me your questions or share your stories. Thanks for tuning in. This is Shep Hyken, reminding you to always be amazing.